and welcome to the Marley Bird YouTube channel, brought to you by Red Heart Yarns. In this video, I'm going to show you how to make this super adorable loopy mermaid tail blanket. Isn't this just the cutest little thing? There is a hole right up here at the top of this blanket for the recipient to put their legs in, and then down here at the bottom, this is just a fun little tail fin that is attached so it looks like you're a little mermaid. I just think this is adorable. This uses the brand new yarn Loop It from Red Heart. This yarn does not require any hook or needles, just your fingers. So go ahead, grab the free pattern, which is available at redheart.com. I've put a link in the video description box of this video right down there. And while you're down there, smash that like button, as my kids say, to let people know you enjoyed this video. Once you have your pattern and your Loop It yarn, join me back here. I'm going to show you everything you need to know to complete this mermaid tail blanket. As I mentioned, you don't need any tools to complete this really cute blanket. All you need is the new Loop It yarn by Red Heart. This yarn comes in many beautiful colors, and I can't wait to see what colors you choose for your mermaid tail. We begin the mermaid tail right at the top where the opening is for the legs to go in. Go ahead, grab your Loop It yarn, and let's jump in. To start working with your Loop It yarn, remove the ball band label, and then go ahead and look for the end of the yarn. You're going to pull it from the outside of the ball. Once you have found the end, make sure that you do have a nice tail so that way we can use that to tie this Loop It yarn into a circle to form the body of the blanket. Take a stitch marker and place it into this first stitch right after your tail. For purposes of this video, I'm not going to use 44 loops. There's no need for me to make a full-size blanket to show you what you need to know. So I'm going to use fewer loops. Make sure you're using the number that's indicated in the pattern for your blanket. Once you've counted the number of loops you're going to use, we're going to use this tail and we will tie it directly onto our yarn right past your 44th loop. So at this point in my project, I'm going to take this tail and I am just going to tie the tail around my yarn. And I know this might be a little tricky to see, but I'm just tying it right onto my yarn. And I want to make sure that my loops butt up to each other as close as possible. Okay? Now that I've established this, my marker right here indicates that that's the last loop of my round. Working, I'm going to rotate my work around, okay, so that way you can follow along with me. So I have my marker over here to the left, and I'm going to work with my working yarn from left to right around this circle. So I want to go to the first loop past my marker to the right. I will grab the first loop from my working yarn, making sure that it is straight and not twisted. And I will go from the back through the loop that is in the established ring and pull that to the front, okay? I will go to the next loop of the ring, the next loop of my working yarn, and go from back to front. Next loop from the ring, next loop from the working yarn, go from back to front. I like to think of this as you're putting the new loop through the old loop. So the new goes through the old. And we're going to do this all the way around the ring. When you get back to the stitch that has the stitch marker on it, you know you are at the end of your round. What you will do now is the next stitch of the ring will be right here, okay? So as we go from this stitch on our working yarn to the next stitch on the ring, we're going to essentially sort of jump up to that stitch, and that will create a giant spiral. That's what we're working on. Before you get going too far, make sure you remove that marker from the first stitch and put it into the new one you created. So that way you know where the last stitch of your round is when you come to it. Now we will continue on working around. We will do 3 rounds like this. On round 4, that's when we start to begin doing the shaping to taper down the blanket. Once you have worked 3 rounds, we're going to begin to do shaping. And the shaping is done by working what is called a knit 2 together at the end of the round. So for this round 4, we're going to work all the way around to the last 2 loops. So that'll be the loop before your marker and the loop with your marker in it. When you get to the last 2 stitches, you can see right here, here's my stitch with my marker, here's the stitch without. We're going to do a knit 2 together. What you want to do is the next stitch on your working yarn, we want to pull it through both of these stitches. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to have one stitch lay on top of the other, and you can decide whether you want the stitch with the marker on top or the stitch without the marker on top. Whatever you decide to do, just keep it consistent throughout the blanket. I'm going to put the stitch without the marker on top so that I have both of those stitches held together. The next stitch on my working yarn is ready to go, and I'm going to pull that through both of those and up. So now I have decreased 1 stitch. Make sure you put your marker into that new stitch you've created, and you will carry on. Rounds 4 through 17 are completed just like that. You will work the knit 2 together in the last 2 stitches of each round, decreasing down until you have 30 stitches. Once you've decreased down to 30 stitches, the final round is just a plain knit round. So you will just knit all the way around for 18. At the end of round 18, remember I'm making mine a lot smaller just for time purposes, you want to make sure that you cut your yarn and you leave a nice little tail. So I'm going to cut my yarn there. And then see I have these 2 loops, so I'm just going to snip those open. So that way I have a tail that I can weave in and make sure that everything is secure. Okay, so this would be the completion of my mermaid's tail, which is a condensed version, but it's easier to show you on a small scale. Now it's time to prep our work so that we can create the fin. With the tail laying flat on the table, we're going to start over here with the first front loop on the left. And we're going to take our color B, remember, make sure you have some tail there. And we are going to start with a knit stitch into this first front stitch. Okay, we're going to call that the front stitch. And I'm going to pull that up. Now, looking at the first back stitch, see how it's like it's the back of the circle? So it'd be this white color. I'm going to just kind of pull it forward, and I'm going to take the next loop from my working yarn and pull it through that one. Come back to the front. I'm going to take the next loop from my working yarn and pull it through this one. Go back to the back. Make sure you don't skip one. It's this pink one. And I'm going to have my working yarn loop go through that. Come back to the front. Working yarn through the front loop. Go back to the back, working yarn through the back loop. You will do this all the way down the row until all of the loops are secure. Once all the loops are worked and are now in a straight row, we're going to work back and forth for a couple rows. We will not turn our work, and it's going to look like a clumped up mess right here at the start until we get a little bit of fabric going. But starting over here on the right side now, you want to make sure you go to the last loop you worked, and then the first loop on your working yarn, and then pull the new loop through the old. And we're going to do this all the way down the row. This is our row 2. When you get to the end, obviously it's already starting to expand out a little bit because you're giving those loops a little bit more room to breathe. You're going to go ahead and work from left to right, going back for row 3. Once you finish row 3, you repeat rows 2 and 3 4 more times for a total of 10 rows. That is like the body bit of the fin. Then it will be time to shape the fin so that you get those 2 points. Go ahead, get through row 10, and then we can start shaping the fin. Again, I am working with a smaller sample, so I don't have 10 rows, but I'm at a point where I can begin to show you how to shape the fin. Now the fins are made separately. You will make the right fin and then the left fin. That does not mean they're made separately and then joined on, but you will make each one independently. We'll begin with the right fin. Our yarn is over here on the right side after you have finished a row 3. So working row 1 of the right fin, we will go ahead and work our working yarn through the number of loops that's indicated in the pattern. Obviously my number will be smaller because I have fewer stitches, but you'll get the gist of it. Once you have worked your 13 stitches, you will do another knit 2 together. This time, because I want my knit 2 togethers to kind of look like they're facing this way, I will take the stitch, the second stitch over, and I will lay it on top of this one that's to the right, and I will work a knit 2 together that way. Okay, at this point you now have 14 stitches, and we have these stitches over here that we have left unworked. We're going to leave those stitches unworked until it's time to come back and join yarn to those, and that will become our left fin. For the next row, we're going to go back this direction, only working on these stitches. And one thing you will know now is that every time you're at this edge, we will work a knit 2 together until we get down to 1 loop. So starting here at this edge, this very first stitch is going to be a knit 2 together. So I'm going to take this loop and put it on top of that one. Remember, I want to keep it consistent here. I'm going to have them flow this way. And then I will have my next loop from my working yarn push through those 2 loops. And I will continue on working back. So I have 1 fewer loop than I did on the previous row. So if we had 14 on the last row, we now have 13 on this row. As I mentioned, when you get to the end of the row, you will go ahead and we're going to repeat. So we're going to work back this direction, and when we get to the last 2 stitches, we will work a knit 2 together. And we will do this all the way down until we get to 1 loop. As you get down to the final couple rows, you will work your knit 2 together, and that will leave you with 2 loops. You will work those 2 loops as a knit 2 together, just like you've done all along. Pass this one over top of that one, working yarn, pop through, and we're left with 1 loop. So you can see here, I have this nice tail fin getting shaped there. How cute is that? Now I want to finish off this last loop, so I'm going to cut my yarn, making sure I leave a nice little tail there, and make sure I make that tail open. Take this yarn, thread it through that final loop, and give it a pull, and that locks it into place. Now you simply just thread this loop, this tail, you would weave it in. You can just kind of tuck it in back and forth through the stitches and tie it into place. That way it would go away. Okay, so that is my right tail fin. When I want to work my left tail fin, I come back over here to the left side to all of those loops I left open. Okay, and I'm going to begin with the first loop on the left side and my working yarn. So I want to make sure I leave a tail here. So let's get my yarn, give myself a little bit of a tail, make sure I carry that apart. There we go. Starting over here on this left edge, I'm going to work across all of these stitches, and when I come to these last 2 stitches, I want to do a knit 2 together. So before we were crossing over like so. This time I want these decreases to go in this direction, so I'm going to cross over the opposite way. I'm going to take the outside one and put it on top of the inside one. And we will work back and forth, always decreasing at this edge until we get down to 1 loop, just like we did over here. So here at the start, we go with the new yarn through the old yarn and continue on. And voila. simply tuck in those tails. There's my tails at the end of my mermaid fins. And look how cute that is. This is the body of the blanket, and then it comes down, you work several rows, and then you get this really great mermaid fin. You have the tails here, but they're really easy to weave in. All you would need to do is either flip this with the wrong side out and take the tail, thread it through one of the loops. And then I actually like to create a knot. So I thread it through and then I create an actual knot to knot it in place. I don't do this with my regular yarn, but I do it with the Loop It yarn. And then I trim it up and it's all tucked away. Let me show you how cute this is. Look how adorable my little tiny sample is. That, I don't care who you are, that is so cute. And I made it all with my fingers and the new Loop It yarn from Red Heart, which comes in a multiple of colors, and there are some new colors added to the collection. So please check them out at redheart.com. If you do make this mermaid tail, be sure to share with us on social media. I'm hashtag Marley Bird, or you can do hashtag Red Heart Yarns, and we'll be sure to find your post and smash your like button. I'm Marley Bird, proud national spokesperson for Red Heart Yarns, and I hope that I have inspired you to go and grab some Loop It yarn and get started today on this really great project. I'll talk to you again soon. Bye. I told you that wasn't so hard. You don't need any tools, just your fingers. Go ahead, grab some Loop It yarn, and if you need more instructions on how to use it, I've got some great instructional videos right here on the Marley Bird YouTube channel. Check them out. Don't forget to smash that like button. Bye guys.